right, chapter 12 of Caspian. Sorcery and sudden vengeance. Meanwhile, Trumpkin and the two boys arrived at the dark little stone archway which led inside the mound, and two centennial badgers, the white patches of their cheeks were all Edmund could see of them, leaped up with bared teeth and snarling voices. "Who goes there?" "Trumpkin," said the dwarf, bringing High King of Narnia out of the past. The badgers nosed at the boys' hands. At last, at last! "Give us light, friends," said Trumpkin. The badgers found a torch just inside the arch, and Peter lit it and handed it to Trumpkin. "The DLF had better leave," he said. "We don't know our way around this place." Trumpkin took the torch and went ahead of the dark tunnel. It was a cold, black, musty place with an occasional bat fluttering in the torchlight and plenty of cobwebs. The boys, who had been mostly in the open air ever since that morning at the railway station, felt as if they were going into a trap or a prison. "I say, look at those carvings on the wall. Don't they look old? And yet we're older than that. When we were here, they hadn't been made." "Yes," said Peter, "that makes one think." The dwarf went ahead and then turned on the right, and then the left, and then down some steps, and then to the left again. Then at last they saw light ahead, light from under the door. For now the first time they heard voices, for they had come to the door of the central chamber. The voices inside were angry, and someone was talking so loudly that the approach of the boys and the dwarf had not been heard. "I don't like the sound of that," whispered Trumpkin to Peter. "Let's listen for a moment." All three stood perfectly still on the outside of the door. "You know well enough," said a voice. "That's the king," whispered Trumpkin. "Why the horn was not blown at sunrise this morning. Have you forgotten that myriads fell upon us almost before Trumpkin had gone? We were fighting for our lives for the space of 3 hours and more. I blew it when I first had breathing space." "I'm not likely to forget," came an angry voice, "when my dwarfs bore the brunt of the attack and 1 in 5 of them fell." "That's Nickelbrick," Trumpkin whispered. "For shame, dwarf," came a thick truffle hunter, said Trumpkin. "We all did as much as the dwarfs, and none more than the king. I can tell your tale that way, your own way, for all I care," answered Nickelbrick. "But whether it was the horn was blown too late, or whether no magic was in it, no help has come. You are a great clerk, you're a master magician, you know all. Are you asking us to hang our hopes on Aslan and King Peter and the rest of it?" "I must confess, I can't deny it, but I'm deeply disappointed in the results of the operation," came the answer. "That'll be Dr. Cornelius," said Trumpkin. "To speak plainly," said Nickelbrick, "your wallet's empty, your eggs addled, your fish uncaught, your promises broken. Stand aside and let others work." "That is why the help will come," said Truffle Hunter. "Stand by Aslan, have patience like us beasts. The help will come. It may even be now at the door." "You badgers would have us wait until the sky falls when we can all catch larks. I tell you, we can't wait. Food is running short. We'll lose more than we can afford at every encounter. Our followers are slipping away." "And why?" said Truffle Hunter. "I'll tell you why. Because it's noised among them that we've called on the kings of old. The kings of old have not answered." The last word Trumpkin spoke before he went, most likely to his death, were, you must blow the horn. Do not let the army know why you blow it or what hope you have from it." But that same evening, everyone seemed to know. "You better shoved your gray snout in the hornet's nest, Badger, than suggest I'm the blab," said Nickelbrick. "Take it back, or—" "Oh, stop it, both of you," said King Caspian. "I want to know what it is Nickelbrick keeps hinting we should do. But before that, I want to know who those strangers are whom he has brought into our council and who stand there with their ears open and their mouths shut." "They're friends of mine," said Nickelbrick. "And what better right do you have to be here than you're a friend of Trumpkin's and the Badgers? And what right has that old dotard in the black gown got to be here except that he's your friend? Why am I to be the only one who can't bring friends?" "His Majesty is the king to whom you have sworn allegiance," said Truffle Hunter sternly. Court manners," sneered Nickelbrick. "But in this hole we may talk plainly. You know, he knows that this Talmarine boy will be a king of nowhere and nobody in a week, unless we can help him out of the trap which he sits. Perhaps your new friends would like to speak for themselves. You there, who are you?" "Worshipful Master Doctor," came a thin, whining voice. "So please you, I'm only a poor woman, I am, very obliged to his worshipful dwarfship for his friendship, I'm sure. His Majesty, bless his handsome face, has no need to be afraid of an old woman that's nearly doubled up with the rheumatics and has 2 sticks to put under her kettle. I have some poor little skill, not like yours, Master Doctor, of course, in small spells and cantrips I'd be glad to use against our enemies if it was agreeable to all concerned, for I hate 'em. Oh yes, I hate 'em. Nobody hates better than me." "That's all interesting and satisfactory," said Dr. Cornelius. "I think I know what you are, madam. Perhaps your other friend Nickelbrick would like to give some account of himself?" A dull, grave voice, at which Peter's flesh crept, replied, "I'm hunger, I am thirst. Where I bite, I hold till I die." Even after death, they must cut out my mouthful from my enemy's body and bury it with me. I can fast 100 years and not die. I can lie 100 nights on the ice and not freeze. I can drink a river of blood and not burst. Show me your enemies. And it is in the presence of these two that you want to disclose your plan? Asked Caspian. Yes, Nickbrick said. By their help, I mean to execute it. There was a minute or two during which Trumpkin and the boy could hear Caspian and his two friends speaking in low voices, but could not make out what they were saying. Then Caspian said aloud, Well, Nickbrick, we'll hear your plan. There was a pause so long the boys began to wonder if Nickbrick were ever going to begin, but when he did, it was a lower voice, as if himself did not much like what he was saying. All said and done, none of us knows the truth about the ancient days in Narnia. Trumpkin believed none of the stories. I was ready to put them to the trial. When we first tried the horn, it's failed. If there ever was a High King Peter, Queen Lucy, Queen Susan, King Edmund, then they've either not heard us, they cannot come, or they are our enemies. Or they're on their way, said Truffle Hunter. You can go on saying that till Mira has fed us all to the dogs. As I was saying, we've tried one link in the chain of old legends, and it's done us no good. Well, but when your sword breaks, you draw your dagger. Tell stories of the other powers, besides the ancient kings and queens. What if we called them up? You mean Aslan, said Truffle Hunter. That's all the one calling on him and the kings. But they are his servants. If he will not send them, I make no doubt he will. Is he more likely to come himself? No, you're right there, said Nickbrick. Aslan and the kings go together. Either Aslan's dead, or he's not on our side, or something else stronger than himself keeps him back. And if he did come, how would we know he's our friend? He was not always a good friend to the dwarfs, about all that's told. Not even to all beasts, ask wolves. Anyway, he was in Narnia only once that I've ever heard of, and he didn't stay long. You may drop Aslan out of the reckoning. I was thinking of someone else. There was no answer, and for a few minutes it was so still that Edmund could only hear the wheezing, sniffling breath of the badger. Who do you mean? Caspian asked at last. I mean a power so much greater than Aslan's that it held all of Narnia spellbound for years and years if the stories were true. The White Witch, cried all three voices at once. From the noise Peter guessed the three people had leaped to their feet. Yes, Nickabrick said very slowly and distinctly. I mean the witch. Sit down again. Don't take all fright in the name as you were children. We want power. We want a power that will be on our side. As for power, do not the stories say that the witch defeated Aslan, bound him, and killed him on the very stone which is over there just beyond the light? Yes, but they also say he came to life again, the badger said sharply. Yes, they say, answered Nickbrick. But you'll notice that we hear precious little about anything he did after. He just fades out of the story. How to explain that if he really did come to life? Isn't it much more likely that he didn't? That the stories say nothing more about him because there's nothing more to say? He established the kings and queens, said Caspian. Excuse me. A king who has just won a great battle can usually establish himself without the help of a performing lion, said Nickabrick. There was a fierce growl, probably from Truffle Hunter. And anyway, Nickabrick continued, what of the kings in their reign? They faded too, but it's very different with the witch. They say she ruled for 100 years. 100 years of winter. There's power, if you like. There's something practical. But heaven and earth, said the king. Haven't we always been told she was the worst enemy of all? Wasn't she a tyrant 10 times worse than Miraz? Perhaps, said Nickbrick in a cold voice. Perhaps she was for you humans. If there are any of you in those days, perhaps she was for some of the beasts. She stamped out the beavers, I dare say, but at least there are none of them in Narnia now. But she got it all right with us dwarfs, and I'm a dwarf, and I stand by my people. We are not afraid of the witch. But you've joined with us, said Truffle Hunter. Yes, and a lot of good it's done my people so far, snapped Nickabrick. Who's sent on all the dangerous raids? The dwarf. Who goes to the short when the rations fall? The dwarfs. Lies, all lies, said the badger. And so, said Nickabrick, whose voice was now rose to a scream. If you can't help my people, I'm going to bring someone who can. Is this open treason, dwarf? Asked the king. Put a sword back in its sheath, Caspian, said Nickabrick. Murder at council, is that your game? Don't be fool enough to try it. You think I'm afraid of you? There's 3 on my side and 3 on yours. Come on then, snarled Truffle Hunter. But he was immediately interrupted. Stop. We go on too fast. The witch is dead. All the stories agree on that. What does Nickabrick mean by calling on the witch? That grave, terrible voice that had spoken only once before said, Oh, is she? Then a thrill, whining voice began. Oh, bless his heart. Dear little majesty, you needn't mind about the white lady. That's what we call her, being dead. The worshipful master doctor is only speaking of a poor old woman like me when he says that. Sweet master doctor, learn master doctor, who ever heard of a witch really dying? You can always get them back. Call her up, said the gray voice. We're all ready. Draw the circle, prepare the blue fire. Above the steadily increasing growl of Badger and Cornelius' sharp "What?" rose the voice of King Caspian like thunder. "So that is your plan, Nickelbrick. Black sorcery and calling up an accursed ghost. I see who your companions are, a hag and a werewolf." The next minute was so very confused. There was an animal roaring, a clash of steel. The boys and Trumpkin rushed in. Peter had a glimpse of a horrible gray gaunt creature, half man, half wolf, and very active leaping on a boy about his own age. Edmund saw a badger and a dwarf rolling on the floor in sort of a cat fight. Trumpkin found himself face to face with the hag. Her nose and chin stuck out like a pair of nutcrackers. Her dirty gray hair was flying about her face. She had just got Dr. Cornelius by the throat. One slashed of Trumpkin's sword at her head, and her head rolled on the floor. Then the light was knocked over, and all swords, teeth, claws, fists, and boots for about 50 seconds, and then silence. "Are you all right, Ed?" "I think so," said Edmund. "I got that brute Nickelbrick, but he's still alive." "Weights and water bottles," came an angry voice. "It's me you're sitting on. Get off. You're like a young elephant." "Oh, sorry, DLF. Is that better?" "Ow, no. You're putting your boot in my mouth. Go away." "Is King Caspian anywhere?" asked Peter. "I'm here," said a rather faint voice, "but something bit me." They all heard the noise as someone was striking a match. It was Edmund. The little blue flame showed his face, looking pale and dirty. He blundered about for a little and then found the candle. They were no longer using the lamp, for it had run out of oil. Set it on the table, lit it, and when the flame rose, several people scrambled to their feet. 6 faces blinked at one another in the candlelight. "We don't seem to have any enemies left at all. There's the hag, dead." He turned his eyes quickly away from her. "And Nickelbrick dead, too. And I suppose this thing's a werewolf. It's been so long since I've seen one. Half wolf's head, half man's body. He seems to have been turning from man into wolf at the moment he was killed. And you, I suppose, are King Caspian?" "Yes," said the boy, "but I have no idea who you are." "Ah, it's High King Peter," said Trumpkin. "Your Majesty is very welcome," said Caspian. "And so is your Majesty," said Peter. "I haven't come to take your place, you know, just to put you in it." "Your Majesty," said another voice at Peter's elbow. He turned and found himself face to face with the badger. Peter leaned forward, put his arm around the beast, and kissed the furry head. It wasn't a girlish thing to do, because he was the High King. "Best of badgers, you never doubted us through it all." "No credit to me, your Majesty," said Trouble Hunter. "I'm a beast and we don't change. I'm a badger, what's more, and we hold on." "I'm sorry, Nickelbrick," said Caspian. "Though he hated me from the first moment he saw me, he had gone sour inside from long suffering and hating. If we'd won quickly, he might have become a good dwarf in the days of peace. I don't know which one of us killed him, and I'm glad of that." "You're bleeding," said Peter. "Yes, I'm bitten. It was that wolf thing." Cleaning and bandaging the wound took some time. But when all was said and done, Trumpkin said, "Now, before anything else, we want some breakfast. But not here. No, and we must send someone to take away the bodies. Let the vermin be flown into a pit, but the dwarf we will give to his people to be buried in their own fashion." They breakfasted at last in another of the dark cellars of Aslan's house. It was not much of a breakfast, as they would have chosen, for Caspian and Cornelius were thinking of venison pasties, and Edmund and Peter were thinking of buttered eggs and hot coffee. But everyone got a little bit of cold bear meat out of the boy's pocket, a lump of hard cheese, an onion, a mug of water. From the way they felt to, anyone would have supposed it was delicious.